Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're right next to me.
How about now?
Yeah, still fine.
And now?
Walt, you're not even moving.
I'm not moving very much, but according to the latest models of physics, as I move through the world, I move ever so slightly through time. Relative to universal time, which is ever constant, but relatively speaking, I could be slightly further into the future than you are. Or the past. Where do they go in Interstellar?
Would you leave me alone? You're here. You're now. You're not going anywhere. There are dishes to do.
No, that's it. I'm going to move as fast as I can. Time is flowing around me. I am propelled through the time stream and I'm there.
Would you leave me alone?
You just said that. I did travel through time.
No. I just said, would you leave me alone again? Because I still want you to leave me alone. Seriously, dude, the dishes are piling up. No matter how fast you move, time does not change. You still need to scrub-a-dub-dub, put your scrubby hands
Silly
on.
James, there are no dishes in the future.
Where we're going, we don't need dishes.
We all remember the line. Welcome to the Get Commanded podcast. It's the GCP brought to you by POG, Palms Off Gaming, sponsor of this podcast, where Floop is a madman. Help us, save us. I'm your host, Walt.
I was wondering if you're going to do the voice. I'm so glad you did the voice. Hello, Commander players. ¿Por qué no las dos, James? And that's a real deep cut. That's a real deep... Those two introductions are connected.
They live in the same cinematic universe. Before cinematic universes were cool, Spy Kids was doing it. The machete verse is a real thing. Before we get to the transmission, we can say it now because we're midway through it.
And we're like fully committed to it. You are doing it.
It's happening. We're posting every single day for the month of September on TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts.
Yes.
Every day.
It's kind of a mammoth task, which, to be honest, I'm really glad to claim part of because Walt's doing most of the work at the moment. There are some hilarious skits already on TikTok of Walt playing Commander and Walt having conversations with each other. It is hilarious. The best thing about this is I didn't work on any of those TikToks, so I got to see them as kind of a fan of Walt, which was awesome. But yeah, there's going to be more interviews from Command Fest going up.
Still more of those.
There'll be some skits of both of us in the same room appearing together.
Near future, or perhaps for you already the near past, so you'll want to check through the feed and see if you can spot those.
Yeah, screw it. Go onto the page now, scroll through, and spend the next 20 minutes watching a reel of TikTok shorts of Walt and I being absolute idiots for your enjoyment.
Hell yeah. What's your favorite of the ones I've made so far?
It's got to be the ghoul one, the silver smoke ghoul.
I was really shocked. Like, it's interesting what things do really well on the platforms and what don't. Because that one didn't get the numbers very high. But I thought that was way funnier than everything else I've made.
Look, the board wipe one was hilarious, but I think that the algorithm is so much more likable to that because
it's very topical
relatable,
to Commander specifically.
Very
board wipes.
keywordable, but this was hilarious. If you don't know the card, it's a card that comes back if you gain 3 life on your turn, like if you eat a food, for example. And Walt does a great performance of the ghoul smelling the food.
The ghoul coming back to life.
I actually... And what was even funnier is I remember the game where that joke in our play group kind of came up of that ghoul coming back every time you eat a food.
Yeah.
Hilarious to see it brought to life in like performed. Yeah. Very, very funny.
Thanks. Well, you don't want to miss them, so definitely follow us on one or more of those platforms: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube.
Yeah, but we got topics to discuss.
We do indeed. We've got an incoming transmission from the deep depths of the galaxy from the Space Commanders. It's time to get commanded.
Commander can be played in an infinite number of locations, with each offering its own benefits and drawbacks. Players will grow most by balancing their time in each place.
Well, you know what they say. Location, location, location. We're being real estate agents for Commander players, apparently, for this episode.
Finally, thank you, Space Commanders. We've been waiting for the real estate episode. We're
it's
prepared.
fucked. Don't enter. Don't enter the market. Run away.
All right. And thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah,
We'll see you next
that's
week.
the end.
We're talking about where you play Commander. So, the benefits of particular locations of playing a game of Commander. And it sounds like also how you could maybe grow by playing in some other places too. So
kind of spread your wings a little bit. I think a lot of us have one place where we play most of our Commander, and that's normal.
Yes.
I think everyone will gravitate towards, one particular way of playing, whether it's at an LGS or at the kitchen table, which we'll all discuss. But yeah, I think there is definitely going to be some merit and some benefits to playing in different locations. Just physical locations can change a lot about a Commander game.
Absolutely they can. And a lot about the kind of person that you play with as well. Like a lot of this will be about shaking up play groups, I think. And speaking of, I feel like we should probably start at the top of this episode because I think it's going to be something that's going to matter a lot in the context of talking about where you're playing Commander. The concept of trusted and untrusted pods. This is something...
real variable here.
Yeah, the Commander Rules Committee specifically used this language to describe basically the degree with which you're familiar with the players you're playing with. So a trusted pod would be a game where you know the players and their decks well enough to understand how powerful the decks should be, what's allowed and not allowed, how mulligans will be resolved. It's basically a place where often a Rule Zero discussion is less needed.
Sometimes can be completely foregone by.
Yeah, a lot of the time. And look, pretty much every play group, like if you reckon you play in a play group, you're very likely playing in a trusted pod.
If you have a group chat for your Commander players, that's usually a good sign that that's a trusted pod.
Those are trusted pods when you sit down to play Commander together. But yeah, the opposite of this, of course, is an untrusted pod. Where, you don't know the players very well. You don't know the decks very well, maybe at all. And basically every time you play with a stranger, you're playing in what the Commander Rules Committee would call an untrusted pod.
And for comparison, this is where the Rule Zero conversation really comes in importance because this is where you really don't know what you're getting into, and this is why Walt and I hate so passionately the number scale power level, because my level 7 deck to you might be a level 15 out of 10, but my level 9 deck might be a level 3 to someone else because they only play with the upper echelon of power. It really does change what number you're using, but having a good, robust Rule Zero conversation like we advocate for very often on this podcast is really important with these pods, because if you just say, my deck's a level 7 and then sit down and play, you're going to have a very untrusted game. But if you have a Rule Zero conversation where it's like, this is my win condition, Demonic Consultation and Thassa's Oracle, I immediately go, okay, that's different to my Elf Ball typal kind of just go wide with elves deck. I don't even have Craterhoof in this deck, so definitely not at that echelon.
Yeah, it helps you understand those things better. I mean, I think it's really interesting, like the Commander Rules Committee used this language specifically because they talk about how so much of the challenge of managing Commander is that unfortunately you kind of have to plan for untrusted pods, even though probably most of us play trusted pods, because those are the circumstances in which Rule Zero is most likely to let you down. And so the ban list is kind of curated for untrusted pods specifically. It's trying to help untrusted pods make sure they're at least in the same realm of possibility. But yes, Rule Zero, of course, is always king.
And this is 100% the best thing about trusted pods, right? Is in that Rule Zero conversation, and according to the Rules Committee, this is Rule Zero of Commander, you can unban some cards.
Yes.
And in those trusted pods, that's where that stuff happens much more easily.
Definitely.
You can sit down with your pod, or you could send in your group chat on, the Facebook Messenger and be like, hey, tonight let's do a silver bordered cards are allowed Commander night.
Yeah.
And now everyone goes, okay, I'm going to play Alexander Clamington and rock up with an old fogey deck or something like that and play something really weird. Whereas if you go to a game store and sit down with a bunch of randoms, and rock up with Alexander Clamington,
Yes.
there's probably someone in that pod that's not going to have the best time
No.
with silver-bordered cards.
And it's good for the format at large that those cards are locked behind a conversation with trusted people. Like, it
100%.
shouldn't be the kind of thing where you sit down and someone can pull out Old Fogey and that's a legal thing in the format. It should be a thing that you can unban it, as you say, with people that you really trust. For the sake of this episode and just like interest myself, I looked through the last 100 games of my game log to
How many
see
are you like up to?
177.
Wow.
As of today, the recording of this episode.
When are you going to... Because I gave up so quickly when I started tracking games.
I'm going to reevaluate at 200.
At 200?
I think. I'm going to have a
Yeah.
think about whether it's profitable for me to continue because I feel like a lot of the things that I'm
See if
tracking
the Space
now...
Commanders let you.
That's true. They'll let me stop. So I looked at the last 100 games though. So from like 76 to 177. I don't know. It was 100 games.
Sure.
Because I was interested in how often I personally was playing in each of these different locations that we're going to go into.
Oh, sure. So we got some stats for this episode.
Well, we have, and specifically percentages, because if you divide anything by 100, you just get a percentage.
That's a really nice, easy way. You could have done it for the whole thing, but then you would have to have divided by a really weird number
Yes,
and done
it's
some maths.
Easier to just have the number be the one I want.
Yeah. Easy.
Yep, exactly. We're going to go from kind of the most to least, quote, trusted locations. Of course, you can play untrusted Magic at a kitchen table and you can play trusted Magic at a convention. But in general, people play trusted Magic at kitchen table, untrusted at convention. So we're sort of following that kind of scale. The place you're most likely to play trusted all the way down to the place you're most likely to play untrusted Magic.
Sure. And I'm assuming we're going to start with the kitchen table then.
We have to.
Yeah.
So we've got 6 locations lined up. We're going to highlight 2 benefits and a drawback from each. And then, just for funsies, we're going to give a score about how me and James feel about this as location as a place to play Magic.
Out of 10, how hyped we are on these locations.
Yeah.
It's kind of like 10 out of 10 would play Commander here again. Yeah. Like that kind of thing.
Exactly
like,
right.
5 out of 10, I might consider going back.
Yeah.
1 out of 10 is I would rather die than do this again.
1 out of 10 is the restaurant got my order entirely wrong and also kicked me in the head.
And also gave me the item of food I was allergic to and I died.
Yes, I died. Yeah, 1 out of 10 is death.
Yeah.
And the death place is, so locations.
Magic Con Vegas.
We found it. Kitchen table.
Sure,
we have
let's
to start
start there.
there. It's the OG of Commander locations. It's just you, some friends, and a kitchen table.
Well, I guess the OG of Commander locations is that at the back of like conventions with all the judges.
True.
But I think
Sheldon Menery, yeah.
For many of us, I think the kitchen table with our friends on like a game night with maybe a bottle of wine and a cheese board. It could be some diet soda and pizza. I don't know how fancy you guys are, but I personally love a cab sav and a slice of brie. But yeah, this is where most of, I think, my Commander at the very beginning was played.
I think it's most people's introduction
Yeah.
to Commander is at a kitchen table because, some benefits. It's a really safe environment, right? You usually curate the invite list or, a friend of yours who you know really well curates the invite list. It's a very cozy and easy place to go and play a game of Magic.
I mean, it couldn't be more of a trusted pod. You're literally inviting people into your house or you're going to a friend's house.
Yeah.
Like, that is the definition of trust. Like,
Yeah.
I'm giving you my address.
Yes.
Like,
But also, like, as you say, another benefit is, like, you have complete control over the vibe.
100%.
It can be loud, it can be quiet, you can have music, no music, food, no food, have a beer. Like, all of these things are possible at the kitchen table because you're in a home and you're with people that you trust. So,
you can play without shoes on. That's so cool.
whoa!
Yeah.
Slow down,
Let your
James.
hair down,
I was
people.
with you on the cheese board, but not the cheese smelling feet.
You're fine with the blue cheese, but not my blue cheese feet.
No.
Okay, fair enough.
Exactly right.
Put my slippers back on.
Drawbacks.
Do you reckon there is a drawback of kitchen table?
I think probably the drawback is play groups, which is to say that I think
I see where you're going with this.
I think playing with exactly the same people, and I think this is exactly what the Space Commanders are getting at. I think playing with exactly the same people all of the time can result in things that we specifically have talked about: arms races, silver bullet cards, arch enemy decks that everyone goes, "Oh my god, we have to kill James because he's playing Niv Mizzet
or
today."
just arch enemy players, like, James has won every game we've played for the past 3 game nights. Let's just try and kill
hose
him
James
as quickly as possible.
I think all of the problems with play groups specifically, I think this is the most likely place for you to play with a play group, I would say, is the kitchen table. And so I think the drawback to kitchen table is the drawback of play groups, which is yeah, that when you play with exactly the same people and exactly the same decks all the time, you can get hang-ups like Arch Enemy and Silver Bullets and stuff.
I think there's the other downfall of that you don't get to experience the wider format. Like a lot of us will build. I mean, it's so different, right? Like some people will only ever have 1 or 2 commander decks, but some of us might build 10, some of us might build 20. There are mad, insane people in our Discord that have 100+ commander decks sleeved up, ready to play. But like generally, I've got about 10 to 15 decks at a time. I rotate maybe 5 of them every 6 months, and then maybe build a new 5, that kind of thing. But typically, a play group, you'll see the same decks over and over again, which
Very
means
likely.
You're not exposing yourself to a big gamut of commander. Like we identified that we have so many hundreds and hundreds of options of possible commanders right now. And with a play group, you might only ever see 30 of them? 40 of them, maybe? Like, that's a bit of a problem if you want to be playing Commander and experience the whole format.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think this drawback is very likely to be the benefit that we'll get to in some of the later, less trusted, quotation marks, locations.
Yeah.
Because those are places where you do experience new decks, new players, new ways of playing.
And I guess this is like, I don't know how I'm trying to word this. Like, this is one of the things about, well, what the Space Commanders were saying is like, I know this is like a really comfortable and amazing place to play. And I think is a really, it's a safe space. I think safe is the right word for me to use there. But like, it's not growing you as a Commander player.
No, not typically.
And like, I know Commander games are singleton and they're very RNG. That it's like there's lots of randomness going on, but you will see the same plays. You will see the same patterns. You'll see the same combos.
You'll see the same win cons.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, you know, like there's only so many times. If you've got someone in your play group who loves to go wide, you're going to see a lot of overwhelming Stampede.
And you'll have to anticipate the combat tricks. Like you'll look over at your friend and go, okay, I can see they're holding up that very specific amount of mana. I've seen it a million times, so it's probably this spell. Like it's
I know that's Team of
Aetherize
Battle Rage because that's your favorite card. Yeah,
whatever it might be. And to me personally, I really remember this from like when we were playing during lockdown in the share house.
We had a really, really tight play group because it was
4 of us.
Yeah,
it was like only
no one
4.
could come or go, so there was no one else we could play with.
And we were really young as well. Like we were only just starting out in Commander, so we only had a very limited number of decks. So I got really good at predicting what cards were about to be played. Yeah, and it got boring to me.
Definitely, it's I think the only and biggest drawback to playing in this way.
It's weird. At the start of this, I was like, surely there isn't going to be a downside to Kitchen Table. That's my favorite way to play. And the more I think about it, I'm like, actually, if you're trying to progress yourself as a Commander player and experience the whole format, being in a very confined meta, there are some problems there.
Definitely. Well, for reference, in the last 100 games, I played 22 at various kitchen tables.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
That's nearly a quarter of your games.
Yeah. It was tied for the second most common place for me to play. So in other words, there's a way that I play that's the most common, and then this and also another one are tied for second as the most common places for me to play.
Interesting. I don't know if I would be... I reckon I'm about that. I reckon it's about a quarter of my games as well.
Yeah.
About a quarter, I'd say.
Yeah,
and
that sounds right.
That might be normal for most of you. If it isn't, tell us. I mean, like, we obviously have a few variables in our statistics that might skew it, like...
Which we'll see later as
stream
well.
every single Monday night, which might come into this.
Yeah.
But, like, I think that the kitchen table is where I want to be.
Well, that's my thing. I think when I saw this number, my first thought was, I wish that was higher. I just have the best time typically when I play a kitchen table Magic, maybe because I'm playing so much, you know, not untrusted necessarily, but so much in other places that I really crave returning to my roots, returning to consistent play group, consistent games with people that I really like. And so, 22, like, I'm not saying I want this to be 50 or something, but I wish this was, 33 or 40 or something. Like, I really, it's probably my favorite place to play Magic, and I wish that I played there more.
It's 100% my favorite place to play too. I think that the benefits of kitchen table for me far outweigh the negatives. And I think the thing that can alleviate the negatives is having a slightly bigger play group.
Yes.
Like, we're really lucky now.
That's
We've
true.
got a great group chat with about... How many people are in that group chat? Like 10 people?
Oh, 20 maybe.
20 people?
Yeah,
it's quite a big group chat. And like, we'll try and make kitchen table games happen as often as we can. And usually they're different groups every single
Yeah.
time. Like it'll be,
Yeah.
maybe 2 pods will come. So 8 people out of that 20 will come. But it's a different 8 than it was last week.
Yeah.
That's really a great way to alleviate the silver bullet arms race situation, because now you can't really plan to play your Stigma Lasher against the life gain player
Sure.
because you don't know if they're going to come.
You don't know if there's going to be a life gain deck at the table. Yeah.
Yeah, but also it allows you to experience more commanders, more
Yeah.
different play styles,
Yeah.
the more of the meta.
Yeah, definitely. Out of 10,
Ooh.
where are we at with kitchen table magic?
All right, how do we want to do this? Do you want to reveal your number, then mine, or do we want to do like a 3, 2, 1, say the number
Let's
at
do
the same
a 3,
time?
2, 1.
Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. 8
9.
out of 10. Oh, 9.
Yeah, it's just my favorite place to play. I
Yeah.
think. I'm not giving 10 out of 10, I think, because there are drawbacks, but 9 out of 10 for me. 8 for you.
I think I was leaning towards 9, but then at the very start of this, I was like 9 out of 10 for me. Or to be honest, maybe at the start before we talked about the drawbacks, I was maybe a 10 out of 10.
Sure.
But I think after thinking about the effects that it has on... Maybe I'm thinking of digging too much into my CDH brain a little
Sure.
bit, of like not experiencing the meta of
Sure.
Commander and the wide array of different decks and seeing different cards and having to use my skills as a, threat assessor and predicting plays. That's something I really enjoy about Commander. And like, I love playing with you, don't get me wrong, but I've seen overrun casts.
Many
a few
times
now.
Many times.
I've also seen Blacksmith Skill
Yes.
cast by you a few times. I've also seen insert any iconic Walt card here
Sure.
a few times. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I
it's
really
good to-
love that.
It's good to play in other places because it also makes you appreciate your kitchen table more, which I think is exactly what Space
And it
Commanders are
also
getting at.
it makes it more refreshing. Like, I don't want to play kitchen table all the time because I want to be able to come back to the kitchen table with you, play with you, and go, oh, Walt's holding up a white mana. I know it's Blacksmith Skill.
Sure.
That way I get to go, oh, this is familiar. It's like familiar territory. It's
Sure.
like, it's kind of like, it's like, when you're playing a video game and like for the first time, right? And everything's brand new.
Yeah.
And you love the game and you want the experience of playing the game for the first time again. You desperately crave that. So you play it
mod
on... Yeah, you mod it. No, you play it on like veteran mode or something,
Sure,
and you
sure.
go out and play really hard. And then you go, you know what? I just want to play the game as easy it was before and just enjoy the graphics and enjoy the
Sure.
the soundtrack. And so you reset the settings to easy or whatever and you play it
Sure.
again. And there's that real sense of like, oh, this is comfortable. I feel like I'm a kid again playing this
Sure.
for the first time.
It's
just
comfort.
easy.
It's
Yeah.
familiar and it's nice. Yeah. That
Kind
makes
of like
sense.
comfort food for Commando in a weird way.
I like that.
It's the chips and ice cream of Commander locations.
Nice. The second location we have here is online caveat with friends. Specifically. So we're talking virtual Magic now, Spell Table, Tabletop Simulator, Magic the Gathering Online, Cockatrice. Those are probably 4 of the most common ways to play Commander specifically online. Not highlighting Arena because Brawl doesn't count. Sorry, Wizards.
It's also not Commander in any way, shape,
No,
or form. It's
it's
not
not Commander.
social. It's
No.
not blah, 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 blah.
No, not
We can
Commander.
talk about that for ages.
Yes.
Moving
but
on.
yes, those 4 are the big ones. Spell Table being the big highlight there for sure.
Yep.
Benefits of playing online with friends. Basically the opposite of the kitchen table. You don't have to have a venue.
Yeah, true.
Scheduling gets way easier when no one needs to drive anywhere or take
Yeah.
public transport or check the bus timetable.
Well, it can happen spontaneously, right? You can like
Absolutely.
text your friends and be like, hey, you guys online right now? I'd love to cram a game of Commander in before dinner or something like that.
Definitely. Other big benefit being it can be, not always, very, very cheap. Through
That's true.
some of these mediums, you can have just like a laptop and a microphone and you can cram some games of Commander. I want to highlight Cockatrice specifically. If you have no money and no cards, Cockatrice gives you access to literally every card that ever exists.
Yep.
I don't like the user interface very much. I find it really ugly and really annoying.
It looks like it was made for a primary school in the 1990s.
Yeah, it makes Magic the Gathering Online look like Apple, like an Apple store.
Yeah, it makes it look clean and efficient,
Yes.
which is saying a lot. Like a lot.
No, but you can't deny if you just want to try a deck and spend zero money, not even money on a printer and some ink.
Yep.
You can load up Cockatrice and you can play Commander with Cockatrice. So
You've got a
that's a
computer,
benefit.
you're ready to go. And like genuinely, I think a lot of people are put off by even Spell Table because they think, oh, I need a big fancy streaming setup and, you know, I need to be a Twitch streamer to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You really don't. Do you want to know genuinely how Walt and I stream on Twitch? We have a webcam that is inbuilt in our computers. Like I have a MacBook. Like that is my computer. Walt's got a supercharged gaming PC, but I've just got a MacBook. That's all I have. And I use my mobile phone as my overhead camera because Spell Table has this like inbuilt virtual camera system that any phone can use.
Yeah. And I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I had to I probably spent slightly more money because we bought this exactly the same mount for the phone, which was like $70 or something from Amazon.
There's cheaper ones as well. Like
There's
you can
100% there'll be cheaper ones.
And
some people might just have a bookshelf next to their desk that's the right height, where you might just be able to sit your phone and point it down, like hanging over the edge with a book on the end so it doesn't tip over. You might be able to do it for $0.
I have also seen some people make like this kind of weird... it's almost like a laundry basket turned upside down with a hole cut in the top. So you can put your playmat under the laundry basket and your camera on top and then cut out the sides of the laundry basket. So you've just got this kind of like raised platform and your playmat underneath. And you can... So you just cut out the sides of the laundry basket. You kind of make like a weird table. Yeah. I've seen like really... I've also seen memes of people being like, my elite Spell Table setup, and it's just literally their phone hanging from a piece of string from the ceiling. Like, as long as it's stable, that could feasibly work. Like, there's no reason why you couldn't just make a kind of sling for your phone in the air.
You can do it very cheap. And yeah, like we stream and people have never complained about our setup, and it's literally a mount that we bought for like $70. And in my case, I paid like $4 for the premium version of my software so that it would use the full aspect ratio and not like a cropped in thing. But you could still use the cropped in thing. Like it's functional.
Well, I have an iPhone and you can change the aspect ratio on the phone.
You can just do that.
You can just go onto as you load in on your phone, it will come up of like custom aspect ratio. I hit 16:9. I say use the back ultra wide camera. So I get a wide field of view, and then I just zoom it to where I need it and then hit join and poof, all my friends can see my playmat.
It's the big benefits. It is cheap. It is easy to play online with friends.
Surprisingly so.
Yeah.
What's the drawback?
Drawback, to me, Magic is about the gathering.
100% agree.
You can just kind of miss out. If you're someone like me who really benefits from just being physically in a room with your friends, you can miss out on the joy of being with people in a physical space. Not for everybody. Like this obviously has the big other side of this, which is some people for various reasons can't leave the house or require that they're at their home. That's totally valid.
Or just prefer being in their own
which
space.
Is also totally reasonable. But yes, for some of us, and I think Magic players, probably this is a good chunk of us, we love being physically in a room with our friends, and that's a big part of the reason why we play the game we play.
Sure.
And for me, virtual Magic will just never scratch that itch the same way.
Yeah, it's a big thing for me as well. I think that the Magic the Gathering is the gathering itself. It's the coming together and like so much of Commander to me is the before and after a game. It's the talking about the latest set, about cards that you're excited for, and then after the game being like, hey, do we all want to go get some dinner together?
Yeah.
And then it becomes...
Or even mid-game, ordering some pizza, and then you have a little interlude halfway through. It's turn 8 and you're having to think about your turn. You're like, before we think about that, I'm going to eat some pizza.
Yeah. And it's like, all right, we're pausing on my upkeep, everyone.
Yeah.
Let's move this into the lounge room so we don't get our cards sticky and eat over there. It's genuinely such a lovely part of the game because Commander, and like it's so specific to Commander, right? Like Modern doesn't have that. I don't go to the local game store after playing a standard tournament and go to the 20 people in the room for a standard tournament and be like, hey guys, want to get some pizza after this? Because there's probably one guy that just kicked my ass in a game and I'm like, I don't like you anymore.
Yeah.
There's probably another guy that I kicked his ass and he now doesn't like me anymore.
There's probably someone in the room who's not wearing shoes and their feet smell like cheese.
Yep. I definitely don't want to eat dinner with him.
No.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like Commander is such a thing where, because it's a non-competitive, social, casual format, the thing that you're doing is not playing Magic the Gathering, it's hanging out with your friends. I know that sounds wild on a Commander podcast, but what we love about the game is actually playing with our mates. Right? Like that's the best thing.
It's a big thing, and virtual Magic just doesn't quite get there. The number of games I played, we already sort of alluded to how warped this number was going to be.
Yeah.
I played 38 games
Wow.
virtually during the last 100 games. So almost 40%.
So that's the most one, right?
Comfortably the most
Yeah.
games I played were virtually online with people that I know, but specifically because we're in that category, online with friends. But yeah, 38. 38.
I am not shocked. I mean, we stream every single week. We play 1 to 2 games at least online, and then usually sometimes when we turn off the stream, we'll play another game in private, or when, you know, the next day, Walt will be like, hey, I really want a rematch of this deck, or something like that. Like,
but we also have international patrons that we play with. We're committed to playing with them once a month. And so,
shout out Bottomless Potamus and Ben.
Yep, both Ben and Bottomless Potamus we play with once a month. So that's one game of the month already sorted. At least one game a month right there for each of them there.
Yeah, true.
Look, not gonna lie, for this number, I love Spell Table Magic. I think it's really, really cool. I love that we get to stream and have people watch us. And that's the only way we can really do it right now. It's a lot more money to set up cameras and be in person.
Yeah, 100%.
I do wish that this was more like the last category and it was more like 25% of my games.
I think you just want this inversed,
Basically,
right?
yeah. I'd love to play 40% roughly kitchen table and about 25% spell table, I think.
I think I'm the same. I think I like Spell Table a lot more because a lot of my CDH that I play is via Spell Table. And I think that there's just a bigger community. There's lots of tournaments on Spell Table for CDH.
Kind of the only way to have them in many ways.
Yeah, especially...
you can have them in person, but to have really great attendance and really competitive pools of people.
Well, for Australia specifically,
yes,
like it's a lot harder for someone from Brisbane, Australia to go to a tournament in Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah.
It's not a quick car ride. That is a day and a half of car ride to get to a tournament or a plane journey.
Well, and also like the Oz CDH Discord, like when they've had tournaments before, they have had international people play and win those tournaments. So like they are getting...
and win.
Yes.
Crypt, I know that you listen to this podcast on occasion, still salty about that.
Yes. But like you in order to get the widest pool of great players, you kind of have to be online for CDH.
Yeah, 100%.
Because you don't have the facilities to host all those people in a room.
I think that I would... Yeah, I might rate this slightly higher than you as a prediction if we're doing the out of 10. Have you got a number for out of 10?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. 3, 2, 1,
7.
4.
Whoa, that is way lower than I was like. I was expecting 5 or 6. 4 is very low.
I had 5 in my head, and then I was thinking about it, and I really, I want to be clear. I do like it. I'm just thinking of all the other ways that I play Magic, and I think pretty much all of them are higher than this for me. And it's not anything against playing virtually. And I think it's incredible we get to play internationally with our patrons and stuff. That's extraordinary. I would not trade that for anything. But if I'm talking about, okay, you're playing Game of Commander, you can choose where you're going to play. Here's the list of places you can choose from. This is probably the bottom of my list.
Fair enough. Maybe my 7 was too generous. Maybe I'm a 6. I think I'm going to change to a 6.
Okay.
I'm going to change to a 6 because I think I agree with you. If I was given a choice, I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, Spell Table. But to be honest, I am one of those types of people that on some nights, I would just prefer to be at home. And like, I really love...
Well, you're really time poor as well, which
is
a
thing for me.
A big thing for playing virtually. You can turn the camera on. I mean, we're going to go into this a lot more later because we're talking about online with friends right now, and online with randoms can be a lot more flexible.
That's a very different thing.
It's a very different thing. But yeah, in general, like the flexibility of like turning on a webcam or, setting up your phone in a holder and just turning on your computer, that is so much easier than going anywhere or having anyone over.
Well, I also, it's a bit of a mental, like, for me, going to the game store and stuff, there's like a process to the whole thing, right? Like, I have to choose what decks I put in my deck bag.
Totally.
I have to choose the outfit that I'm going to wear, which is a real thing. And like, I'm not saying that I have like incredible social anxiety, nothing of the sort.
But there's barriers. There are things you have to do in order to leave the house to do anything.
And like, I love being able to say, guys, like, oh, sorry, I'm F6 right now. Take my headphones off and just genuinely have a moment to myself while I go to the bathroom, or maybe even just say hello to my pets, or say
Yeah.
hello to my partner, go get a
Yeah.
drink from my fridge that doesn't cost me $5. Like, you know,
Yeah,
that's
it's
a
a
real
thing.
thing. And like, I can eat food in the comfort of my own home and not worry about annoying other people by the food that I'm eating. That for me is a real benefit of Spell Table, and that's why I'm not going below a 5.
Sure.
I think Spell Table gives players that have that feeling of like, I'm just comfortable at home, and I'm sure that there's a lot of listeners out there that can kind of relate to this.
Totally.
I reckon I'm happy with a 6. I'm going to lock in 6.
Sounds good. I think it's interesting thinking on that I think most of the kitchen table Magic that I play is at my kitchen table. And so I get
that's true.
this at home
Yeah.
with people physically there, which is, not everyone gets that. Some people are usually the ones going over to other people's houses. So
I'm usually the one coming here. Yeah.
So there's
occasionally I'll host, and it is a different feeling, isn't it?
It is different.
Like
When you get to be at your own home, it is different than for everyone else who is still going out.
Although I hate hosting because I always like have a panic clean of the house 10 minutes before anyone arrives. I'm like, quick, Theo, vacuum the floors.
Well, that's its own thing, and that another benefit to the virtual Magic thing. No one's in your house.
No one can see the underwear that's still on my bedroom floor while I'm playing or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The next place we're going, and again, we're moving less trusted as we go in general. Local game store, and again, we're giving a caveat with friends.
So this is, I can see why this would be less trusted than Spell Table with friends.
Well, because like it's just like the last two, we're probably playing in a trusted play group, but we are now taking it into a public space.
Yes.
So like benefits. Feeling connected to a larger community of players can be a real benefit to being in a game store. You get to be around other Commander players. Usually, you're at a Commander night a lot of the time.
Yep. You get to support your LGS, yo.
I mean, that's a huge benefit on its own. Yeah, support a local gaming business that probably are the people who sell you the packs that you open and the booster boxes that you open. And
you might even get a promo for just being there, because there's like Love Your LGS promos. There's like the Cultivate, and there's Rec Tower.
There was the Reliquary Tower.
There's a bunch of LGS promos that like genuinely, if you just rock up on a
Inspector, I think was one for a while. That like full art frame, like alternate art. That was
Didn't
really
you get
cool.
like 4 copies of those for a Pauper deck?
I did. Yes. The at the time we were running the community group, and we'd been doing it for a really long time. And the one of the people who's working at the store said, "Walt, I think you're a big part of the reason that we get the turnout that we do at Pauper, because you are already always lending decks. Have a play set of these for your Pauper deck." Yeah, that was really cool. That was really special to me for that reason.
I still have maybe 7 copies of Cultivate with the Love Your LGS Cultivate.
There's a particular copy.
I mean, look, our local game store in Greensboro is like our main store. We also really love the guys at Plenty of Games in Melbourne.
Yes.
They're another one of our local game stores.
Store, definitely.
Those two are like our home bases. We love them so much, and that supporting them is a real big part of going to the game store for me. I actually at the start of this year realized, wow, last year I very rarely played in a game store. Like, it was a real big thing, especially after like handing over that community organization.
Yeah, that we were running at the time.
We handed that off to focus on the podcast. Walt and I just genuinely ran out of time to go to Commander Nights and go to the game store. Yeah. So this year I've made a real conscious effort to go to the LGS, and every time I go to the LGS, it's like I have kind of a door tax for myself, like an entry of just buying a pack and a drink. I'm really lucky and fortunate that I can do that.
Yes.
But
I think if you can, I think you should. I think we're so lucky that so many game stores do not charge entry for Commander. Some do. Yep. And honestly, in general, let's all ease off the brakes a bit for that. Like, the game store has to keep the lights on and have the drinks fridge stocked for you. Yeah. So like, if they charge entry, whatever, we're really lucky in Melbourne. I'm not aware of any game store in Melbourne that charges entry for Commander.
Not for Commander Night, no.
So yeah, like, if you have the means, and most of us do, come on, we play Magic the Gathering.
That's so true.
You can afford to buy a pack or buy a drink or buy a snack, like buy something from the game store just to keep the lights on. It's a really big thing.
And I also just really enjoy, like, I don't buy sealed product that much, and just being like, oh, Ravnica Remastered looks cool. I'd like to crack a pack of that.
And doing it in a communal environment. Like, sometimes even if you're not with friends, getting to open a card and be like, oh my God, I got blah, blah, and have like 5 people go, oh,
sick.
Awesome. Yeah.
Even the guy behind the counter might be like, oh, that's actually on our buy list. We'll buy that off you for like $20 and you can buy 2 more packs.
Yeah, exactly right. I want to highlight a drawback here, which I know that we both have a big aversion to. It can get so loud in a local game store on a Commander night.
Look, we're loud people. Walt and I can be incredibly loud.
It's true.
The Get Commanded podcast, we see our audacity track. We can see
we
how
know
loud
we
get.
peak it out. I'm sorry about that.
Yep, rest in peace, headphone users. But we know that for a lot of people, volume and just noise density is a real overstimulating thing.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it can be a real barrier to enjoying a night at a game store.
Absolutely.
Is just how hectic it can get, especially on a Commander night, especially these days. Commander is the most popular way to play.
Yep.
When we started playing, Commander night at our LGS was like 20 people,
Yep.
like 20 people to 30 maybe
Yep.
on a good night. And when we started running that community group, that quickly turned into over 100 and something people rocking up to this tiny game store in Greensboro.
Yeah.
In a tiny room, like the local game store was literally putting trestle tables out in the like real,
the front of the store is like stock, like actual games,
the
like
shop,
board
like the
games
real,
and stuff.
the real estate,
and like between aisles, basically,
Yeah.
they were putting a trestle table because that was the only place they could fit
it
people.
was insane.
Yeah.
And I think it is a pretty big drawback, especially when you're trying to play a game of Commander. It's pretty intense when maybe you're just a quiet person and you go, okay, I'm going to cast Swords to Plowshares on your Commander. And then you just hear, what?
Yeah.
What? What are you targeting?
Yeah.
Who are you targeting with that?
Yeah.
What modes are you choosing for that spell? And then someone will come over to you halfway through you trying to explain that and be like, "Hey, do you want to look at my trade binder?"
Yeah, that's the other big one is just like the issues with communication, definitely, but also knowing people, wanting to chat to people. The average length of a game in a game store, I've seen this because I note down the
track
length
it, yeah.
of my games when I play them. When I play Kitchen Table, I would say the average length of a game is 70 to 80 minutes.
Which is my sweet spot.
Yeah, I
That's
love it.
where
I love
wanna
it
be.
there. At a local game store, I would say the number is from 90 to 120 minutes, an average game, and sometimes even longer than that. And
I'd say minimum an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Like 90 minutes.
It's
yeah.
very rare you get under
Yeah.
90 minutes in a local game store. It's a big drawback. And as you say, for some people, it will be a deal breaker. Some people literally in those environments cannot focus in a way that will let them enjoy and play a game to their best ability.
See, we're really, really lucky, right? At both local game stores that we go to in Greensboro and at Plenty of Games in Melbourne CBD, there's kind of like a back room at Greensboro and there's a mezzanine floor at Plenty of Games.
It's true.
And we're really lucky because we know the store owners and are very friendly and kind of known. And we also have like now there's a great community of content creators that we know, like Plenty of Games, Cozy Magic Club, Attack on Cardboard, Casual Compliance. We kind of, the other week we had like a really cool, you missed out on it, unfortunately.
Yes, there was a big meetup at Plenty of Games in the city.
Yeah. And
you guys had the whole mezzanine floor, basically, right?
Plenty of Games team were like, hey guys, we've got the mezzanine sorted for you. Go and enjoy this like quiet little space up and out of the way of the rest of the store.
Very lucky.
Oh, it was exclusive. The privileges of our profession.
They're rare, but they do happen. So the number of games that I played in my last 100 was 18.
Okay.
I do want to be clear. I don't track whether I'm playing with friends or with randoms, but I would say most, like probably maybe 70% of the games are with people who I know everyone in the pod. And then the remaining 30, I would say, were pods where I knew at least one or two people. And then like a random like came in to make the last person in the pod.
Reasonably, you could probably assume that you know of that person. Like they're part of your local game store, so you might have seen them around in the past.
If I'm in Greensboro, very strong chance. But yeah, there definitely have been also times, again, rarely, but like I will play with actual random sometimes. So yeah, I'm just saying because I'm talking about local game store with friends is the name of this category.
Yeah.
I'm saying this isn't definitive, but yeah, 18 games I played specifically at local game stores. I feel like in terms of the numbers and how I feel about them, I feel about right about this.
Yeah.
I think it is good to go to a game store sometimes and feel part of a community and a Commander night and stuff. But I do prefer other places overall. And I'm glad that there are those other places I do play more often than here.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think I like around, 15 to 20% of my games would probably want to be at a game store. I also want to just highlight as well that there are some Commander events, like Commander Party. Each set now seems to be having some kind of Commander Party thing linked to it, where it's like a way to play Commander with some weird mechanic that's linked to the plane that we're on.
They're fun.
Yeah, the Lord of the Rings one was wildly fun. I actually played a couple of games outside of Commander Party of the Lord of the Rings way to play.
Wow, so it was just that fun.
Just because I enjoyed it so much. It was really weird and kind of just a wacky way to play with this mechanic like linked to the ring, and it was really, really cool. So those nights are also something that I want at least, probably I'm going to say, once a set. I want a night like that at my local game store where I can play a variant and play with randoms and have it be a kind of an excuse to do something very different.
I mean, even like it's not Commander, obviously, but going and playing a pre-release. Is a really fun way to reconnect with people in your local community, experience a new set live with other people. Like it's an event for a reason.
The game store is a special place, and we need to remember that is the reason we have these games. And
definitely,
as Commander players, we're very lucky we get to play at like kitchen table because we're not playing a tournament.
Yes,
so
we don't have to be hosted at a store to play. Yeah, it's true.
Right, out of 10.
Out of 10. Oh.
Give me a second to think because this
is tough. So it's rating specifically local game store with friends.
With friends specifically.
Yeah. Okay. I think I've got my number.
Sure. All right. 3, 2, 1, 7. Unanimous.
Yep.
Cool. All right.
I think it's good. There are other places I prefer. It's not bad by any means.
No.
But it's just a good way to engage in a community.
And when it's all of my friends.
Yeah, it is different.
It is so different.
It is different
and we'll talk about that. But when it's all of my friends at the LGS and it's like our LGS, like I vividly remember like periods of like kind of just coming out of COVID where the store would like stay open for me and my friends because we were just finishing a game of Commander. That is such a special thing, and it makes you feel so connected, like makes your play group feel connected to the LGS. And that's just profoundly beautiful.
It's really, really nice. So we do have lots left to talk about, including 3 more locations, like local game store with randoms. We did promise it.
Coming up.
But I reckon we better take a thrifty interlude.
A thrifty interlude, you say? This is kind of like that pizza party break we were talking about earlier with the playing at your house.
It's time to get sticky fingers.
Sticky fingers time, people.
Anyway, we're going to hear a little something about a thrifty card.
And it's not old stick fingers.
No, it's not. As is tradition, I will be performing this week. It's the Cowled Merchant with some new wares. James, you want to read the card we're featuring this week?
I would. And every time I look at this card, the name of the card, the letters just jumble for me. So give me a second.
There's a lot going on.
It is Threefold Thunder Hulk.
Yes.
God, that's a horrible thing for a dyslexic man to try and read. For 7 generic mana, Threefold Thunder Hulk is an artifact creature gnome that's a 0/0, and it enters with 3+1 counters on it. And whenever it attacks, create a number of 1/1 colorless gnome artifact creature tokens equal to its power. You can also pay 2 generic mana and sacrifice another artifact to put a +1 counter on Threefold Thunder Hulk.
Ever wanted a friend? Want that friend to do your laundry, dishes, battles, baking, and tax evasion? How about if that friend had 3 friends of its own, and those friends made more friends? Introducing the Clockwork Companions. Wind them up by insulting them, make them tick by giving them what they enjoy, grease their gears, and they'll be like well-oiled machines. Actually, they will be well-oiled machines, and many other such idioms. You're my best friend, little robot man thing, and without you I'd be lost, or dead, or both, or maybe neither. Who's to say? You can't talk, and that's why I tell you everything. Now kill this pigeon! He's giving me the side eye, like the rest of them! Get budgeted!
The birds work for the bourgeoisie, even in the Thrifty Thursday universe. Also, totally misread the card.
Oh, yes.
It does it on enters as well.
I did notice that. Yes. Yeah. Enters or attacks, you make gnomes equal to its power. So it's messed up.
It makes 3 when it enters automatically. So it's 7 mana, make a 3/3, a 1/1, and a 1/1, and a 1/1, and use those 1/1s to potentially make the 3/3 bigger.
Yep.
So when you get to your turn, attack, make 4 1/1s, 5 1/1s, 6 1/1s.
Yeah.
This is kind of like, I don't want to give a direct comparison, but because it's 7 mana, I want to compare it to Mere Battlesphere.
I think it's a fair comparison. I think that the obvious big downside is Mere Battlesphere has that pump and deal damage clause on it.
Yeah.
But this also does it whenever it attacks. Mere
This
Battlesphere
keeps making tokens.
If you don't flicker Mere Battlesphere, it's done. It makes 4 tokens. Maybe you've got a double ETB, you make 8, but it's done after that. This makes tokens every single turn. And yeah, I think...
It's kind of wild to call a 7 mana card good in the mid-game.
but it kind of is.
It kind of is.
Thrifty Thursdays happens every week in our Discord server. You can check out the dedicated channel, play some games, or get some advice on your latest deck.
The latest post involved spooning. I'll let you join the Discord server and jump in on that one.
I had a lot of fun writing that one.
We have got more locations to visit and play Commander in. We are we're halfway through now, so we're moving into like more untrusted
territory.
pods.
It's actually, this is a nice episode in that the 3 that we just did were very trusted.
Yep.
And the 3 we're about to do are a lot less trusted on average.
Basically very similar ones that we've already discussed, but with random people.
Exactly right. And speaking of, the first category to talk about is the local game store, but with random people. So
this is weirdly like the most trusted of the untrusted pods, though, right? Because
it is.
It's still your local game store. So
you might know the staff. You might know some people who are around. You
might even have seen or played with some of these random peoples once or twice before.
Yeah, you might be sort of on that fringe level of untrusted, where like you don't know them well enough to like be able to skip a rule 0 conversation, like we were saying. But you know them well enough to be like, oh, they're probably going to pull out their Queen Mage Chaser deck right now.
Or I know what kind of player they are, but I don't know what deck they're going to play.
I know they've been playing Magic for a year.
Yes.
You might know that about this person.
This is like the game store OG. Like this guy was here when Commander was born.
This guy wins Standard every week. I know for a fact. Yeah, something like that. Benefits to playing at a game store with random people. I think this is a great way to expand your play group. Me and James, like our play group and our closest friends were from a community group that started because there was a bunch of people playing at our local game store on Commander nights.
Yeah.
Like we would not have that community group and by proxy, this podcast without having
by proxy our actual friends in real life.
Yes, that too. Without literally having a game store that we went to play with random people. Like you had to do that at some point to find your play group.
It's kind of wild. Like that group chat that we were mentioning earlier, there are a lot of people in that group chat that we met at that local game store.
I would say most.
Yeah, and we played, the first time we played with them, it was one of these kinds of games. It was at a local game store with an untrusted pod with random people. And then that became one of our regular play groups. Like, that's so cool.
You kind of have to start here, right? Like, it's pretty rare. I mean, obviously, there are also times where people's friends get them into Commander, and that's the thing that happens. That's totally fair. But I would say most of the time, we find our regulars by playing with untrusted people, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I think another really big benefit here is that your store's regular Commander night is a very easy time to set aside for games every week.
Yeah. It's always in your calendar,
It's always there. It's like, okay, on Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, I know that there will be games there. Like, I don't have to, when you play at kitchen table, you've got to find time that everyone's free.
Yep.
You've got to pick a time. You've got to make sure that, the house is clean in some cases, stuff like that. You don't need any of that when you're playing at a game store. You can just go, okay, if I know if I'm at this game store at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday, there will be games to be had. I will get this many games.
There will be people that want to play Commander.
Yeah. It's a really nice thing just from a scheduling perspective.
Yeah, I think that there's weirdly like a perfect two sides to the coin of this benefit, right? There are always people that want to play Commander. And the first side of the coin on the benefit side is generally Commander communities are awesome people.
Yes.
Like
the vast majority.
The vast majority of people at local game stores, and there's so many stereotypes out there that they're sweaty and nerdy and like very gatekeepy and, go, oh, you're a woman. That kind of thing. It's like, that's weird. Sure, there's stereotypes and there's stereotypes for a reason, unfortunately.
Yes.
But generally, once you actually go into a game store and you look at who is actually there, it's like a very diverse, beautiful range. Our game store has such a lovely, diverse group of people, diverse genders, ethnicities, belief systems, just general look and appearance. Like, there was a weird period where like skating came into fashion at our local game store and people tried to like adopt the skater look and were buying like Vans and stuff. And then that phased out and now there's like this weird kind of hipster chic vibe going on.
Sure.
It's like a little contained group of people that are their own little society. And it's such a cool representation of Commander as a whole if you just look at a sample size of one game store.
Yeah.
And to me, the community is so easily approached. Like, I understand it can be a lot for some people to approach, but I promise you, if you go to your LGS and just maybe talk to the person that works at the store first, they will guide you to the people that they trust to give you a great introduction to Commander.
Definitely. But yes, the flip side of that coin, for sure, is that we are now moving into a territory with strangers in it.
Yeah, Mum said it, stranger danger.
Yeah, you just don't really know what you're going to get. I agree. I think your average experience will be positive. I think within that, slice of the pie, there will be a percentage of games that are absolutely excellent and you love to play with the people you play with. That said, there is another section of the pie, which is people you just don't want to play with. I can say when we ran that community group, there were 3 people we had to ban outright from our groups.
Yes.
They were absolutely not welcome because of the beliefs that they held. There's probably another 5 who at different times when we were running the community group, we had to go, okay, is it, has this person done something bad enough that we can ban them from our events, or do we just have to keep an eye on them and we landed on just have to keep an eye on them? But that said, you didn't want to play with them.
No.
They were around and you knew they were around and you knew what they were like, but you just had to go, okay, until they do something really egregious, it's not really right for us to ban this person.
It was less about their belief systems they got banned on. It was the behavior that they exhibited.
Yes, well, that's the thing. You can only point to behavior, right? You can't be like, you give me a weird vibe and ban someone. That's not a good way to run anything.
And it's like, no, you did this thing, which is against our community guidelines.
Yeah, but we had people who had consistent and repetitive big, basically tantrums after they lost games of Commander. And we had serious discussions about, are they even welcome at our game store anymore? They were told, we're keeping an eye on you, basically. Yeah. It's a thing that happens in game stores. And when you don't know who you're going to play with, this is always going to be a possibility, right?
Yeah, and it's not always a 50-50 coin flip like the metaphor implies. I'd say it's probably much more likely you're going to have a good time with Commander people than bad time.
90-10 maybe is the odds, yeah.
I would, 90-10 is a good kind of estimation of that, I reckon. But I think that, the fact that it is a possibility is a huge drawback because the second something like that happens, for me, the tantrums when you lose and the table flippers is what we kind of referred to them as. It's this is a problem because it makes us look bad as a community, firstly. And it's very hard if the first game of Commander you play, it ends with that experience. Because imagine if you won that game, right?
Yeah.
You win the game and your opponent is so tilted that they yell at you.
Yeah.
They maybe call you a name.
Yeah.
They pick up their deck and huff off in a storm.
Yeah.
Are you going to want to go back to that game store and play again?
Yeah. I'm so glad that when this has happened to me, I was in a position of power where I could go up to that person and say, hey, that's not okay.
Yeah, that's really not good.
And, I think just in terms of general advice in these instances, if you know anyone in that store that you trust, a judge, a game store owner, a game store worker, tell them that something has happened, obviously. Definitely, because there's a strong chance that they don't want that behavior to come back ever again.
Look, it's really unique and interesting, the position that Walt and I have been in the past, because we were running a community group that was based in a game store.
It's true. We were not game store employees, so we could not ban people from a store, but we could ban people from our community events that we were running.
And our community Facebook groups or our Discords or something like that. That's something we had control over. But the game store has a very different position than community groups. They obviously want customers in their store, and they're not necessarily responsible for kind of conversations between patrons in their store. However, they do have a kind of obligation to the safety of the people in their store. That's a big one. And they also have their own interest of their game store being inviting and a fun place to be. So they are people you can approach and say, hey, I'm really not comfortable because of that person or that group of people.
Yeah.
I want the game store to do something about this. Or what can you do for me that will make me feel more comfortable?
It's definitely a thing that should be investigated if you're really having consistent issues with people. But yes, anyway, we were saying the drawback is that. In terms of the number of games in my log, I don't believe that I had any completely untrusted game store games.
With you 3 randoms?
No. I think in any case that I had a random person in my pod at a game store, I knew at least one other player and often 2. and there was a fourth player who I didn't know.
That makes sense. I reckon if you were to look back and if you were tracking games maybe 3 years ago, this number would be way higher.
Absolutely.
Than 0. Like, I reckon...
It would be close to 80%,
yeah,
I suspect.
I reckon Walt and I, at the time when we were doing a lot of the community organized events, we were playing most of our games, like pretty easily most of our games, with either brand new players or people that have been playing for like a year.
Yeah.
And it was like us and 3 people we had just met.
I remember that there was a point at which we said to ourselves, like, I know we feel like we're being rude right now. We need to actually say to people, no, I can't play a game with you because I'd rather play with James.
Yeah.
Like, we wouldn't say that to people, but we'd say, sorry, I've got my pod sorted, because we were nice people. We wanted to help people learn the game. So we played with randoms all the time. But it got to a point where I was like, I'm doing so much work when I'm going to the game store to play my fun game. And I'd rather just play with my friends.
That was also the benefit of going to the game store, right? It's like your scheduled time in your week that you get to play Commander.
Some weeks, the only games of Commander we were playing were with random people.
Yeah.
And so that was a problem. Like, you can do them, and there's the benefits that we outlined. But I think most of us want a good chunk of our games to be with our friends.
Yeah, right? That's like the whole point of Commander, is that it's with your friends. And like, I also understand that, some people might not have a full Commander pod group of friends that or just friends that don't play Commander or not interested in Commander. You might be the outlier in your friend group, or just don't have a full pod of Commander player friends.
Yeah.
And the benefit of having randoms to fill that gap for your Commander pod is unbelievably huge. And that is such a lovely thing, that you can call this random person kind of a friend for a day, and they could, like we were talking about, become a lifelong friend.
Yeah, they could be a new member of your playgroup who you play with consistently.
That is a huge benefit. But again, you need to balance it to, there are lots of benefits of seeing other people's decks and seeing the wider meta, which we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
But there is a big part of Commander that's so special to me and us personally, that is playing with the people we love and care about and spend a lot of time with.
In terms of the number here and how I feel about it, I don't really miss this particular category of game, mostly due to the next category we're going to talk about. So I will wait to explain why I don't miss this.
Sure. Do we want to give a number, though?
We should give a number.
Let me think.
I think I've got
Untrusted
mine.
games with...
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a number.
I've got a number
Sure.
too.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, 5. Oh,
okay.
Bang on. Exactly the same. This is just,
it's an average experience.
Yeah, this is
like, okay.
It's almost like the middle of the road of Commander,
I think
right?
it is.
This is kind of what the Commander Rules Committee exist for.
Yeah.
It's like literally the reason they have a ban list
Yeah.
and guiding philosophy documents. This is the Commander experience at its core level.
Yes.
There are so many benefits of playing at a kitchen table. There's so many benefits of playing with a friend.
This is the baseline experience.
Exactly right.
It gets better than this, and there are experiences that are, theoretically worse than this, like the drawbacks to spell table we were talking about.
Yeah.
But this is probably the average Commander experience.
Yeah. I think that makes sense for you as well. Like, for me, spell table's a little bit better because of the benefits I was talking about. But a 5 to me is like, this is, if you think Commander, this is Commander.
Yeah, middle of the road.
Yeah.
I like it.
Cool. What's the next category then that's shifting
category that's shifted my feeling towards playing with randoms at convention at local game stores is games conventions.
Convention time.
So we're talking about obviously command fests and also magic cons, but also tabletop gaming festivals, even PAX, other gaming conventions. The two big ones that we'll be probably talking about here are Command Fest and CanCon, because they're the two biggest ones we've been to recently, and we were there as content creators as well. But benefits of playing at a gaming convention. I think it's a really, really excellent way to expand your understanding of the format at large and see lots of very different decks in a short time span.
I mean, this is the coolest thing, right? Especially with like big conventions. You could have like nearly 300 people attend a Command Fest.
Yeah.
And all those 300 people could be from like different states than you.
Yes.
They are bringing different stuff that you've never seen before.
They could be from different countries.
Yeah.
You might get a little taste of the Japanese meta.
Which, by the way, the Japanese CEDH meta, insane. I did a bit of research. It's cracked.
Yeah.
But you can really get an amazing... Like, this is a real sample size of the Commander meta and the Commander...
you can talk a lot more definitively about what you think where you think Commander is at after you go to one of these conventions.
Yeah, like a game store is great, but it still is a confined meta. A game store has there'll be the Plenty of Games Melbourne Commander meta. Like lots of people like playing this archetype, this thing. But at Command Fest, CanCon, PAX, it's the wild, wild west, baby.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. That's one of the benefits that I think is really cool. It's like you walk in that room and see all different shapes and sizes of deck boxes and playmats.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, it's like Candyland.
Yeah.
It's like so many different things to experience.
It's amazing. I think the other big benefit is tied very closely to this, which is you can play a lot of games in a very short time span. I think, like, more than anything else, the thing I get excited for when I think of conventions now that I've been to a couple of them is like, oh man, I'm really going to get to see those 5 upgrades for my deck.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm going to get enough games with my Arami of the Dead Tide deck or my, Sisei deck or whatever.
That new card will come up.
That'll come up.
Yep.
I'll get an idea of the deck. If I need to tinker with it some more, I'll know for sure because I'll have a sample spies. Like, it's a really great way to just like jam games. Like, even if you commit an entire day to Commander and have people over, you typically only get through 4 or 5 games. But Convention Magic tends to be faster. You're often there for multiple days. Like, people are there only playing Commander. There's so much more scope to play a lot of games in a very short period of time.
I'll tell you what the other really cool thing about Command Fests and CanCons and gaming conventions are amazing for is usually you're only going to have about half an untrusted pod. Because usually you go with a mate, like a friend, or you go with your play group.
Yeah.
And so you find a fourth, you find a third, bang, you've got a pod. And it's like a great way to make new friends, kind of cross those boundaries. And then you get to have that fun dynamic. Like we had our own special little table at Command Fest in Sydney.
Yeah, that was really fun.
That was really cool. We were like right at the front of the stage. We had our banner set up and like people would come up. And it was like really fun to have people play with us. And I can kind of be like, hey, watch out. This is a real Walt play. Watch what happens here. And it's like this kind of like crossing. It's a language that only Commander players can speak, like this kind of hidden information that I can communicate to other players because they know the lingo,
Yeah. But you also feel like you're sort of crossing dialect a bit too, right? Like you see, we played a game with one of our patrons and his friend, and then it was me and James. And so it was a real like play groups colliding feeling, like me and James know each other. We know each other's decks. We know each other's play styles. These two knew each other, knew each other's decks, knew each other's play styles. None of us knew the others.
It wasn't across the table.
No. And so there was a really fun thing happening where it was like, something would get played.
I had to like almost threat assess Walt's board for them.
Yes. And then, I think
Crazy Logic.
Yeah. Crazy Logic was playing with us. And Crazy Logic would be going, oh, my friend just played this. You need to keep an eye out for this right now.
And it was like this kind of way of crossing. It's like almost having a translator without having a translator. It's a really wild experience. And it's
really cool.
It's so special. I think the Commander events like that on a large scale are just the best way to see where the whole format is at in terms of health, in terms of variety of decks.
Yep.
It is just the perfect sample size to take a snapshot. And I genuinely think the rules committee, this is where they do a lot of their research.
I think they do. I think it's interesting that I will say the one thing about convention magic is that the average power level, and we've talked about this before, the average power level is quite high because the kind of player who will buy a event ticket to play Commander all day is a very enfranchised Commander player relative to the person who likes Bloomborough because of the art and got a pre-con.
And went to the local game store and didn't go to the convention.
These people are also a big thing. And so I know that, for instance, Shivam, who's on the Commander advisory group, a big part of the reason that he's on there, like great player and a great person and all those kinds of things as well, but he plays in a hyper casual meta.
Yeah.
And I think they really appreciate his perspective because so many of the other people on the Commander advisory group, of course, are very established players.
Some of them are cosplaying characters for like $300 an outfit kind of thing.
JLK hosts the Command Zone podcast. Like, I suspect he knows a little bit about this Commander thing, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. He's been doing it for a few years.
Yes. But so it's really good to have that ultimate perspective. But yes, I think for pure variety, for creativity of deck building, for the new personalities, the new people that you meet, I don't think you can beat convention magic for that, like, cooking pot of ideas.
Yeah. One more tiny benefit that I love about conventions, right? When you're playing at a convention, there's all the same kind of downfalls of being in a game store, right? Like it can be very loud and all this kind of stuff. Do you know what doesn't happen at conventions that happens a lot at local game stores? No one's tapping you on the shoulder to be like, Well, I mean, we have a bit of a different experience.
Not
'cause
me and
we're-
James.
We're content creators.
But the rest of you.
But for like generally, a lot of the time, no one's tapping you on the shoulder trying to
No.
schedule in another game or tapping you and being like, hey, can we look at trades together?
Yeah.
Conventions have trades, sure.
Yeah.
But like they're
People
not...
are pretty focused on just playing games.
Yeah, and they don't interrupt other
No.
games. There's a real etiquette at
Yes.
Command Fest that I noticed where people were like, oh, you're in a game. Enjoy it. I'm not going to interrupt
Yeah,
you.
I'll be just over here for
Yeah.
when you want to grab a second. I think the game store, yeah, maybe it's the particular game store that we go to.
And it's
maybe
almost a little closer to home. People feel
Yeah.
a little bit more comfortable interrupting.
That's probably what
and-
it is. I
yeah.
think there would be something to say about social etiquette in large scale environments where I think in general most of us learn to up our social etiquette because it's like, okay,
We're in public now.
we're in public.
Yeah.
We're in public, and also like there's a lot of people in a small space. We need to kind of look out for one another. Like
Yeah.
I think people sort of ramp that up, and I think that's a really good thing.
And the Commander community is great for it.
Yeah.
But in
Drawback.
saying all of this,
Yes,
there are some drawbacks to conventions.
it's still the Wild West out there.
I said it in a good way, but this
Yes.
is also a bad thing.
It's a big thing. The stakes are lower in general, like compared to the game store. And you also have like a lot of event staff specifically
Yep.
supporting you, like judges.
like us, if you come to one
Yes,
of the Command Fests
definitely.
we're at.
That's a real thing to rely on. But yeah, like I got to say, in terms of power level as well, convention magic, like you can sit down with someone who's like, oh yeah, I've got this silly deck. And then it's like the most synergized thing you've ever seen in your entire life.
And it's also foiled out.
Yeah.
It's like $3,000.
Yeah.
It's got a tiger in
Yeah.
there.
And of course, like this can still happen at a game store. This still does happen at a game store. But yeah, conventions are really the Wild West in a good way, like
Yeah.
in the way that's exciting of like, oh my God, what's your deck going to do? But also, yeah, you can end up in a game. You know, I ended up in a game where I was playing against someone at Command Fest. And he won't feel bad about me saying this because he knows that we're all good because he bought me a pack afterwards.
Oh, dude. Oh,
But
was this Jake?
this is Jake.
I remember this game.
Jake, he's on our TikTok, funnily enough.
Yeah,
Jakey baby.
Jakey baby.
Jakey baby. But yes, I ended up in a game with like there was so many fogs cast, and the game just was not coming to an end. I ended up conceding. I was just like, I'm kind of done here.
I remember walking over to the table and you just had this look because I got eliminated from that game
Quite early, yeah.
And I came back over to the table after doing a couple of announcements on stage and stuff and
Yeah.
came back and you just had an utter look of defeat on your face.
The game had been going for about 2.5 hours at that point,
Wow.
and the thing was, it was the same things happening again and again. Like we were sort of felt like we were stuck in a time loop.
Yeah,
there was no
Groundhog
way.
Day.
There was no escape. And anyway, that like it's fine, it's all good. Jakey baby knows that. But yes, it's a thing that can happen in a game
Yeah.
store. At a convention where you just don't know what you're gonna get, and you can end up in situations like that.
And look, it's totally like, it's an experience. And I think
Yeah.
that for me, that happening at a convention feels less detrimental to the whole experience because I'm like, I've still got the whole day here.
Yes.
And tomorrow. It's a
I've got
multiple day convention.
So many more opportunities to have a good
Yeah.
game. Whereas I think when you go to a game store's night, get Commander night, and you get stuck in a game like that, that might be your only game that night.
Yeah.
That feels really bad relative to this other thing.
100%.
The number of games that I played.
Well, I mean, this is kind of well timed because Command Fest was just recently.
Yes. 22 games.
Wow.
At
That's actually quite a
conventions.
lot.
Going back 100 games actually also included CanCon, funnily
Oh,
enough. So, again, I think that you play so many games when you go to a convention.
You just
that
grind.
They just, in terms of the number of days I've spent in Commander games, the Commander Fest and CanCon will drop in the ocean.
Well, you've played 5 days of convention magic out of this whole year.
But it was 22 games. I think probably that's not
insane.
even all of CanCon. I think I cut off half of CanCon as well.
Yeah.
You just get so many games in. It's a really extraordinary thing.
That is crazy.
So obviously this was the other tied second highest number for me. So there was the
Kitchen table
Kitchen
and
table was
this.
tied with this, and then the highest was the spell table
Sure.
one, as I said. But yeah, it makes sense. You play a lot when you go to one of these places, and this is what I love about conventions. You get the reps in.
Yeah, I genuinely love convention magic.
Yeah.
Like, I also love the fact that you can break it up with some side events. Like,
Yeah,
Commander is great. I played a Mystery Booster Sealed.
Yeah, I remember.
That was so much fun.
Yeah.
I got a weird card. I think it was called Throat Wolf. And it had Firstest Strike.
That's right.
It was
You
damage
also-
dealt before the first strike damage step, and it attacks on opponents' combat steps as well.
You also had that had that land that only taps 5 times.
Oh, gold mine?
Ever? Yeah.
That's in my collection of like cards that I keep for memory's
Yes,
sake.
I remember that one of the judges, because we became very good friends with a lot of the judges at Command Fest, one of the judges came up to me and was like, what is James doing? He's in a practice game and he's tapped his gold mine 3 times.
And I've written, like, I drew on it.
Yeah, he
there's
counted
like
it.
5 little boxes.
Yeah,
and I got
and you have to cross them out.
Yeah,
and
I got
he
a
crossed
judge's
3
pen.
of them out in the practice game. How
Yeah,
funny.
why not? Bit of fun.
But yeah, that's what these are for. It's a chaotic event. There are these downsides of anything can happen, but it's exciting. It's a thrill to be around new
Also,
people all the
there's
time.
artists, there's
Yeah.
prizes,
Yeah.
there's usually really handsome content creators if you're in Melbourne or Sydney in
Yeah.
Australia that you should totally go up to and grab a game with or
Yeah.
like just generally talk to because we're just like kind of lonely.
We're talking about Cozy Magic Club, right?
Yeah, they're really lovely people.
And really
Like,
handsome.
Yeah, really handsome.
All of them.
Casa, just, oh, what a guy. Yeah.
Anyway, we should rate them. Out of 10,
I've
got a number in my head, I think.
what did I rate kitchen table? An 8.
Well, you were at an 8 for at a kitchen table. I was at a 9 for kitchen table.
Sure, I've got a number.
You got a number?
It might
Okay.
be controversial.
All right.
I don't know.
3, 2, 1, 8.
All
right.
I enjoy convention magic in the same way that I enjoy convention magic. Like
To the same degree. You mean.
yeah, I get the same giddy, childish feeling of like this is just fun. Like how you know, sometimes when I'm at conventions, especially now that I'm a content creator and we get, you know, sometimes we get compensated for going.
Mm-hmm.
I am in awe sometimes that we get compensated for doing conventions.
It's wild
Like-
because we have such a great
Yeah.
time.
We were there the night before the convention and we were packing the bags that were given out to guests as they came in, like with their
Yes.
promos, their
It's a long
playmats
night.
and stuff. It was a long night. We had a pizza party. It
Yeah.
was so much fun. And I was like, this is fun. And I'm
Yeah.
not playing Commander yet.
No.
Like, this is so much fun. I genuinely I really enjoy festivals and stuff like that.
It's a really cool thing. I gave mine an 8 out of 10, I think, because I gave Kitchen Table a 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite reach the same level for me, but it is really close. I really enjoy them. I love being around the community, meeting people, and yeah, that feeling of anything can happen in the games.
Yeah.
I actually do like that. I prefer Kitchen Table.
Yeah.
But I really do enjoy convention magic, and I go basically whenever I can. I must admit I didn't have the best experience at PAX when we went, realizing how small within...
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
Well-
PAX is a gaming festival, and then Tabletop was a subset of that, and then Magic the Gathering was a subset of that. So it makes sense. It wasn't the main event.
This
but yeah.
year at PAX, there is a community space ran by our friends at the Cozy Magic Club.
Yeah, and probably a lot of the Aussie content creators will be there.
Yeah, are we going?
I'm not sure if I'm going to go, but you should go.
I should. Yeah, I think I'm gonna make the effort and buy a ticket and,
Cool.
and come along. And so yeah, you can catch me at.
Better get your
PAX.
tickets soon, by the way. They're about to sell out.
That's
PAX
true.
Melbourne.
I should probably freaking do that. But yeah, if you're going to PAX, there's a Learn to Play section of Magic, I believe, and there's
Yes.
also a community room at a certain time. Check Cozy Magic Club socials for when that is, but it'll be ran by Cozy Magic Club, and if you've not checked them out yet, they are lovely, lovely people.
And outstanding content.
Yeah.
Their gameplay show, Commander, is great fun.
It makes us incredibly jealous. Is all I'll say.
Big time. They've got a particular skill set.
Yeah.
Shout out to Casa, and all of them, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay, last category: the most untrusted,
We're at
the least trusted.
full other end of the scale from Kitchen Table now.
I am going to call this category online with randoms. I think in the same, I just think this is the wildest west you can have. So as before, we're talking about Spell Table, talking Tabletop Simulator, Magic the Gathering Online, Cockatrice.
Yep.
But now we're using someone's Discord server. We might be part of a Reddit community. We might be in the Commander Rules Committee Discord server, have the ability to get games.
There's also just like a homepage on Spell Table
Yep.
that has like
You can just have Commander.
pod is looking for a
Yep,
fourth. Do
there's
you want to
3
join
or 4 players. It says 7 out of 10, and you've got to kind of try and guess what 7 out of 10 means.
Yeah.
But yes, like you can do this. You can play completely randomly with people online. Benefits. I want to point out the big one. There's always someone somewhere in the world itching for a game of Commander. So
Yeah.
literally any time anywhere that you are at home in front of your computer or even out and about with your computer and you want to play a game and you have the time, you can play with someone. That's a pretty cool thing.
This like completely takes away scheduling,
Yep.
finding a pod,
Leaving the house,
cleaning
the house,
brushing your teeth. It removes all of these things.
Maybe not that last one.
Maybe you should brush your teeth.
You should brush your teeth.
Yeah, but like this takes all of that away.
Yes.
And it's kind of insane that Commander is as big as it is that we can have that on multiple
we're really lucky.
platforms.
We're so lucky. Like I've played games before, like video games, I mean, where the servers die. Like there are just not enough players online at the time that you are online.
Rest in peace, Battlefront 2.
Yes, to play with people. Like the game is great, but it's not a single player game. It's a multiplayer game and there are not enough players to play multiplayer with. That is so sad.
Can I just actually, while we're on this topic, can I just do a quick like shout out to our listeners? If you play Star Wars Battlefront 2, can you please jump in our Discord server and message me and Walt specifically?
Do you have a copy of Battlefront 2?
I do, yeah. Because it's cross-platform. I got it on the Xbox.
It is cross-platform. Oh my god.
Dude, we can revive Battlefront 2 with this one episode.
If you own a copy, and we're talking about EA Star Wars Battlefront 2,
Yes.
right? Yes, not the OG.
I mean, actually, if you've got it,
Yeah.
you can. There are emulators and there are servers that are still up.
There are. Whoa, okay.
Wow, maybe this can happen.
If you own either copy of Star Wars Battlefront 2, either the 2006 or whatever that one was, or the EA.
Is it that old? Holy shit.
It's very old, the original one. But yes, either one, we want to play with you. Anyway, that's exciting. You can play with anyone whenever you want. The other really great thing, it's a really great way to meet people overseas. So you can really expand your understanding of the Commander meta when you play with someone from Japan, from America, from the UK.
I've got a few American friends, like people that I would actually call friends from America that I've met in Discord servers playing Commander.
Yeah.
And like some of them, I have no idea what their face looks like. Genuinely. Like, I know their icon on Discord. I know their voice.
Online friends.
No idea what they look like.
Online friends are so weird like that. I mean, I remember you went... Where did you go? You went somewhere and you met someone, some CDH player you'd played with so many times. Was it Strix? No, not Strix. We met Strix in person. You met someone.
I met Goose.
You met Goose.
I was on tour with a band. This is such a weird side story. I was on tour with a great band, a great artist called Terra Rouge. She was on tour. She's amazing. You should check her out. And I was in a club in Brisbane setting up her gig, and Goose, one of the amazing players that has played on our stream a few times, who I'd never met in person, tapped me on the shoulder and was like, "Hey, dude." And I'm like, "Hey," and he's like, "Goose." I'm like, "No way! I've never seen you before." And we had a big hug. It was great.
It's a really special experience.
Yeah.
I can't say I've had a lot of this in Commander specifically, but I vividly remember the first time I met my friend Apple, who I hope is listening to this episode, who I played Rocket League with like pretty much exclusively for years. And then we finally were at PAX at the same time when we met up in person. And it's just this magical thing of being like, oh my God, it's you. I've spoken to you in the wee hours of the morning, like more times than I can count. And this is you, the physical person. This is an amazing, amazing thing. Like that's the power of games, I think. And specifically online games is you can have these experiences.
And the fact that we play a paper-based game, like a physical game, that we can do this with, like, Star Wars Battlefront 2, Rocket League, amazing and stuff. But like, we're playing a tabletop game.
Yeah, you don't normally get this with Carcassonne.
No, I've never seen someone who is really into, I don't know, blackjack. Make a really good friend online.
No.
That's a really bad example. Gambling games are terrible examples.
And gamblers hate each other.
Yes. That's like the whole
time.
Maybe, what's Bridge? Bridge? Is there an online community for Bridge?
Shout out the online Bridge players.
All of you
tell us no.
Octogenarian
We're making
Discord.
another call out. Scratch the last one. We don't want to play Star Wars Battlefront 2. Tell us if you play Bridge online.
I don't even know how to play Bridge. I just know that, like...
I just want to know if they play online. I don't want to know the rules.
I want to know what that Discord server looks like.
Oh my God.
Amazing.
Okay. Let's do anything besides talk about what we're talking about.
Look, we've been hyping this up a lot, but there are some pretty intense drawbacks. And it's probably the biggest one is the fact that this is the most untrusted pod you will find.
You anything goes. You literally, like, in a game store, you have game store staff to rely on. At a convention, you have judges, you have workers at the event.
Yep.
Online, you typically have nothing. These are random people. You have nothing that you have access to.
You might have the Discord server's guidelines.
Yeah.
That's it.
You might go like, sorry, dude. Rule 1 says you can't call me that slur. Yeah. Anyway, that said, one. I do want to put a caveat next to that, which is, in online spaces, if you are having a bad game, you can just leave.
Yeah, that red end call button is just there.
Easier than literally anywhere else that you go. Like, even at a convention with random people, there's social faux pas and there's an expectation that you'll be polite to people. You can just leave a call online. Yep. It's a really good thing.
There are some situations where, especially if you're an established member of an online community like a Discord, there are kind of reputations that build up and things like that, which are hard to navigate. They're just like a different form of a social contract, right?
But that said, almost no one's going to hold it against you if you're like, sorry, I had to go.
Well, you can always say, my internet dropped out. Yeah. Sorry. There was a storm and a cow flew into my power lines and cut my internet.
God damn it. I tapped my shoes together 3 times. I didn't go home. I did not. It was no place like home, unfortunately.
My computer just blew up in front of me. I had no idea what happened.
Anything can happen, like you said, including the cows.
Spontaneous combustion of cows in your living room.
Of course. Yep. We've all remember that.
How many games did you play on Untrusted? It's been a long episode.
I played 0 untrusted online games. There was no time that I played an online game over Discord, over Spell Table. I only really play Spell Table. Mm-hmm. I played no Spell Table games with people that I knew none of.
Have you ever done it?
I don't think I have.
See, I've done it a lot.
Well, this is the thing I was thinking. CEDH, this is just expected.
This is kind of how you... In Australia, there is a lot of CEDH is played. You can play with a playgroup at your LGS on Commander Nights, but there is a lot of CEDH that is played in the Australian CEDH Discord server. Pretty much every single night you can find a game in the Australian CEDH Discord server. And this is where I play with the most random people. Yeah. Like, I'll play with the same people a few times. Like, I'll play with Goose, I'll play with Scragnoth, I'll play with Strix.
It's like with the game store thing. Like, you will start to know people as well, even in places where you play with randoms.
But yeah, sometimes I'll log on and I'll be like, oh yeah, let's shuffle up and play. And the other night, actually, like, this was maybe a week ago, there was someone that kind of, as we were shuffling up and doing all of like the, mulligans and pre-game actions and stuff, someone was like, oh, by the way, guys, this is actually my first CEDH game. And we're like, oh, we had no idea. Yeah. Sorry, did you want us to slow that down? There's just this weird assumption that if you're jumping into a random group of people, that, especially for CEDH, that you've played it before. Yeah. And we were like, wow, this is a pretty intense way to get into CEDH. Yes. And then once he highlighted it, our pod, the CEDH community in Australia is just 10 out of 10 amazing.
Really great people in there.
And we immediately slowed our talking down.
Yeah, great.
Started kind of walking through game actions properly and not shortcutting and things like that, which made it a lot easier for the new player.
That's good.
So those kind of lovely things can happen. Yeah. And it's not... You can say, right, I'm going to try playing CEDH for the first time. None of my play group want to play CEDH. Yeah. I'm going to join the CEDH server. Join our server.
Yeah. You can find, I think, communities of people where theoretically you don't know anyone, but you know the vibe is good. Yes. And so I think, the Australian CEDH Discord server is a good example of that. I know a lot of content creator Discord servers where people know, I hope we're one of them, where people know the average quality of a game will be really high. I know, for instance, like... the Commander at Home, Discord server, they have a lot of games. I expect that those games are quite high quality because of the nature of the moderation of that server.
You're in that server, right?
I am in that server, yeah. I think it's a patron-only one, funnily enough.
You should try and get a game in there.
I should try it. I should try it,
That should be a goal for you in the next couple of weeks.
That should be.
Untrusted Game of Commander and the Commander at Home server.
Okay.
See if you can do it.
Give it a crack.
And tell me how you go.
I think, in terms of how I feel about this number, though, I will say, this number being 0... I get so very limited time to play Commander, and I would rather usually spend that time with friends.
I think I would too.
Yeah. I think, and I think we're really lucky that we get to go to conventions so consistently. Mm-hmm. And I think we really, you really scratch that itch of wanting to play with random people, shake it up, see the meta at large. And so I think for me and you maybe, and maybe others who are similar, your desire to seek that kind of thing does decline because you've kind of got your fix a bit,
Yeah.
But yeah, most of the time, if I have the time to play Commander, I'm scheduling in some kitchen table magic. It's just what I want to do.
Yeah, I think that would be my preferred way, but I also have a CDH bug that is thoroughly in my veins, and this is just such an easy way for me to get CDH games in.
Yeah. Should we give it a rank?
Sure. I've got a number. Yeah.
I've got a number 2.
All right. 3, 2, 1, 6. Wow. Holy hell. I mean, you haven't experienced it.
No.
I guess. So that's fair enough.
I will say, in the same way that I said spell table was at the bottom of my list, I would still put spell table with friends higher than spell table with randoms.
Look, I said a 7 for spell table with friends, and I'm saying 6 with spell table with randoms.
Okay, so similar thing.
I said 5 for in game store with randoms.
We both said 5 for that.
So this for me is slightly higher because I get all the benefits of being online and being at home and all this kind of stuff.
It's worth highlighting. We say it all the time on the podcast. James plays so much more CDH than me. Like you would not believe it. In my probably in my last 100 games, there might be 5 games of CDH there. I suspect in James's last 100 games, that number would be like 20 or 25.
I've probably played 100 games of CDH in the time Walt's played 100 games of Commander.
Likely.
Very likely.
Likely to have happened. If you're playing CDH, it's kind of the norm. It's a really consistent way to find great games. And we are so lucky. The Australian CDH Discord server specifically is such a great place to be.
Yeah.
So,
And join our server. We've got a great local CDH group, and they're all part of the Australian CDH Discord server. But look, our server is just over 200 people big. The Australian Discord server, CDH server, is like nearly 700 people big. It can be pretty intimidating joining a server that large.
A lot more daunting. If you join our Discord server, like me and James are there.
Yeah.
If you shoot a message through.
Like, if you really ask, and Walt will play CDH with you. He will.
If you ask really
nicely.
And you have to know that I'm playing stacks.
Yeah.
So, do with that what you will.
You could be there for 2 hours, but you'll have a fun time. And I've got my CDH play group. We call ourselves Chad Nors because we're just absolute Chads like that. But those guys I would trust.
Oh, they're absolutely
any
lovely
day of the
people.
week
Lovely
to teach people the CDH format.
And there's heaps of those people and more in our Discord server. Yeah. So if you do want to play random games with strangers,
our server's great.
The more the merrier.
Like, shout out to Jin on our server, who's pretty much always
looking for a game.
Always looking for a game. Also, shout out to is it Loves the?
Loves that.
Loves
maybe.
that.
I always see it and I think of loves that, and then without the T, so I think it's loves that. Tell us how to pronounce it. Loves that.
But all of you guys, I am loving how much you guys are keen, and sometimes it's so upsetting seeing like 3 people really, really keen, and not enough to get a full pod. So
sometimes I'm at work and it's like it's 8 p.m. and I'm like, I can't because I'm literally not even at home. But I would,
or I'm like halfway through an edit of one of our videos or something. I'm like, I'm sorry,
we're busy bees,
but join our server, because if we get to like 250 or maybe 300 people, that means that those games are going to happen more often.
So much more often. Okay, multiple pods. That'd be so cool.
Yeah, that'd be the coolest thing to see on our server.
Definitely. Look, you can play great Magic just about anywhere, but you may find it more often by mixing up a bit. Whether your meta needs a shake-up, you want to meet some new people, or you just want to play in your dressing gown, there's a Commander pod out there for you. So, Space Commanders, command received.
Playing in my dressing gown.
Yeah.
That's
I
comfy.
had you in my mind when I wrote that down.
Well, I not a dressing gown, but an hoodie. Hoodie's my vibe.
You are an hoodie man.
I love a good hoodie. It needs a wash, I can tell you that.
To the listeners, do you feel commanded? What is your favorite place to play Commander?
Yeah. Rooftop bar. That's pretty good.
Under a sink.
Yeah. Fortress in Melbourne is a really cool place to play Commander.
Speaking of under a sink.
Yeah. Fortress kind of under a sink. It's under in a gaming arena.
That's it.
Look, you can tell us on all of the social media platforms at Get Commanded everywhere. But if you really want to hang out with us live, you can do so in our Twitch chat at twitch.tv/getcommanded, where we play every single Monday and then upload those games to YouTube. I'm sorry, I've been very slack recently. There's not new gameplay up, but they'll go up.
Just come watch them live.
Yeah.
Then.
That makes you come live and hit the subscribe button.
Right? Yo. And of course, don't forget to check out our Patreon page. It's linked in the show notes. It's the absolute best way to support the Get Commanded podcast directly. We'd like to thank our patrons, Fuzzy, Bottomless Potamus, Dyer, Dylan Norg, Bertie, Crazy Logic, and Benjamin. And an extra special shout out, as always, to Fletcher Cutting and Wizard Down Under, who support us in the Space Commander tier. You are the best.
You are the best. And also, shout out to that new patron that hasn't told us.
We don't know what your name is.
Yeah.
If you're out there and you just joined in the Rocket Cadet tier, I have messaged you on Patreon.
Reply.
Please get back to us so we can put your name in the show notes.
Yeah, you're here in spirit for this one.
I'm going to say their name silently so you all hear it, okay? Thank you so much to...
What a
There you
special
go.
shout out. That
You're
was
so
incredible.
welcome.
Wow. Thanks to Palms Off Gaming for sponsoring this podcast. They create awesome deck boxes, sleeves, binders, and other gaming accessories. Go to palmsoffgaming.com.au/hashtag get commanded. You get a 10% discount, but you'll also just go to a website where you'll be kind of in awe at the awesome range of colors. And I actually really love their color range. That's one of the things about Palms Off that we don't talk about a lot.
That's true. Everything matches.
Their colors are sick.
They're real. They find a really great color scheme and then they make everything in it. So
Yeah.
like I have a Genesis deck box and a binder, and they are the exact same shade of pink with the exact same burned in P Palms Off symbol on it with a slightly darker pink on it. They match perfectly.
I'm obsessed with their yellow at the moment. I've bought 3 sets of their yellow sleeves, and 3 of my CDH decks are in them.
I really like the pink specifically.
They match our Get Commanded
They
playmat
do.
really well.
That's true.
Yeah.
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, that yellow is Get Commanded yellow.
If you guys make a Get Commanded orange, I'd rock that.
All right.
Rock that. A burnt
Boys,
orange. Yeah.
Get Commanded.
You've been called out. I know Jacob listens to this. Burnt orange. Make it happen, dude.
All right. Get Commanded. palmsoffgaming.com.au/hashtag get commanded. 10% off. Support us at the same time and get some cool swag from Palms Off.
Yep. There's some great stuff on offer on there for sure.
All right. Planeswalking time.
Yep.
Walt, you have been a very busy boy. I know exactly what you want to talk about because we've been talking about it.
It was a no-brainer.
Pretty much all afternoon.
Yeah. I think it maybe came up in the last episode. It did definitely come up in the last episode. My Skyrim mod list is finally done.
Bravo. What was the final number for the listeners?
There are 650 plugins.
650 plugins. For how old is this game?
Over 10 years. It just turned 10, I think.
My
last year.
God.
Yeah. Look, I want to be clear. The plugin count is not necessarily equal to the number of mods because a lot of those are patches, between mods, so that things are compatible with one another.
I don't care. That's still ridiculous. That is still insane.
There is still an enormous number of things that have been added to my game. I'm really stoked because this time when I was modding, I actually had a really clear idea in my head. I namely wanted to fix a lot of the things that Electra had been playing my Skyrim modding playlist. Yeah. There were some things she really didn't enjoy
This is your partner for those that don't know.
Yeah, my partner Electra, yeah. And namely, I had this lighting mod at the time called Realistic Lighting Overhaul, which does what's on the tin. Namely, if it's nighttime, you can't see anything.
It's dark.
You can't see a thing. And Electra was like, I hate this so much. I was like, that's totally fair. So I kind of used it as my starting point. I set out to build a fantasy vibe. So the lighting is not realistic. It's fantasy. And the gameplay is not going for like a gritty, like some people make Skyrim into Dark Souls, basically. Like it's almost
really
impossible.
hard combat.
Really hard combat.
If you get hit with a double-handed sword, you're going down.
They make the whole game look really desaturated and like a horror game. And I was like, nah, screw that. Skyrim's a fantasy game. So there's bright colors. There's like bright red lighting everywhere. Cool. The sunsets are spectacular. The Aurora Borealis at the nighttime is like breathtaking to look at.
Sick.
And yeah, like all the gameplay, I went for some overhauls that are what in the Skyrim modding community, the big rage at the moment is called Vanilla Plus, which is
Vanilla Plus.
Rather than try to make the game entirely different, it's like, what if we tried to make it like Skyrim but a bit better?
Oh,
like
I like it.
Yeah, anyway.
It's just like it stays true to the core game,
exactly,
but
so there's
enhances it as if the game was made today. Like,
kind of,
like almost remastering the game,
sort of improving, rather than setting out to transform, to improve. And so there's a really popular modder called Simon Magus who has an entire suite of mods that set out to do exactly this. Anyway, there's some amount of that. Mostly, I actually went the other way and was like, no, I want big, stupid nonsense to happen. So like, there's a new perk that you can get where you can become a tinkerer who makes dwarven cannons and you can drop them in combat and they shoot at your enemies. That's not very lore friendly. It's not very similar to the vanilla game, but I think it's fun as hell and I think it belongs in a fantasy game. So anyway, I'm really stoked. I've managed to do that. What I might try and do, I don't have a Twitch channel to link yet. Me and my partner are going to try to stream this game. I'm not sure how it's going to go.
Look, you can use the Get Commanded Twitch channel if you want. I'm one half and I approve if you want. Like, I'm going to watch it.
I think me and Electra want our own little solo spot. I don't know exactly how well it's going to run, so I haven't made a Twitch channel yet. I won't link it yet. Be in the Discord server. When I have a Twitch channel underway and the streaming is working, the gameplay is smooth, I am going to link it and I'll let you all know about it. I'm going to ping the whole server because I think it's really cool.
I'm so excited because I'm just excited to watch you stream, not stream with you. That'll be fun.
I'm just so excited because I've built the mod list partly for myself to play. Like I've started playing.
But Electra hasn't had a hand in it, right?
Hasn't seen anything.
Yeah.
I've specifically kept her in the dark because I think the fun dynamic that we'll have when we stream is me knowing more or less everything that I've added to the game, and Electra being like, "What's going on? What is this?"
I love it.
It's gonna be great fun. Anyway,
that's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm keen as. So jump in the server if you want to see a ridiculously modded Skyrim played by Walt.
It's gonna be sick. I'm really pumped.
Fun extra Get Commanded content, kind of.
That's not
replace James with Electra.
Yeah, there you go.
Basically, what Walt does every Sunday anyway.
That's all we've got time for. We'll see you next Friday for another transmission from the Space Commanders.
See you at the game store, Commander Players.